Today we make bread that looks just like the patches on a giraffe.
Let's see what's cooking. It's time for yoyomax12.
Hello everyone, starting off with a large bowl and 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant dry yeast, 2 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, a cup of milk, and 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter that's been melted. Now I mix this together with the paddle attachment on my mixer first just to bring it all together, and once it was together I switched to the hook attachment and began to knead that dough with the hook attachment. If you don't have a KitchenAid mixer, you can do it by hand. And what I did is I took it out of the bowl and just finished it off by kneading it a few times until it was nice and smooth and elastic. Now you need to divide that large white dough ball into 2 pieces, one that's going to be smaller and one that's going to be bigger. I use a scale in order to divide it by weight. However, if you don't want to use a scale, all you have to do, take that large white dough ball, divide it equally into 3 pieces, and then just take 2 of the pieces and stick them together. So you end up with 1 large and 1 small. Take the small dough ball, put it in a greased bowl, cover with plastic wrap, and put it in a warm place to rise until doubled. Now on to the brown portion of the dough. That's the large dough ball, 2 3/4 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and 2 teaspoons of milk. And I kneaded this with the dough hook attachment of my mixer until it was mostly blended in. I find that nothing can really take the place of hand kneading when it comes to this. And so I removed it and I kneaded it by hand until the color was uniform. And this takes a few minutes, so you'll have to be patient. It takes a little bit of elbow grease, but eventually you'll end up with a dough ball that's a nicely uniform brown. Put that in a bowl, lightly greased, and then add a piece of plastic wrap and put that in a warm place to rise until doubled. And there's the dough that's been rising for about 1.5 hours. It doubled in size, and if you poke your finger in it, that hole should stay there and it shouldn't pop back out. You need to divide this dough into 4 portions, and I did this by weight. I will put those measurements in the description box if you're interested, but you don't have to weigh it. You just need to have 4 pieces, 2 that are roughly a little bit smaller than the other. So 2 slightly larger, 2 slightly smaller. You can eyeball that, it would work just as well. And do the same thing with the white pieces. 2 slightly larger, 2 slightly smaller. Then we're going to roll these out and assemble the loaf. So take one of the chocolate pieces and roll it out until you have a flat oval shape that's about the length of the bread pan approximately. And once that's rolled out, you're going to roll this up kind of jelly roll style from the long edge to make like a snake shape, and just roll it together just to make sure that it's all stuck together and it's all one uniform log shape, and set that aside. Now take a corresponding sized white piece, because we have small and large, so we want to make sure we match those up. Roll that out until it's flat. It's at least the length of the chocolate piece, maybe with a little bit extra, and at least twice as wide. And then you're going to just take the white dough and put it completely around that chocolate colored log and seal up the edges so it's completely covering it with no chocolate showing through. And this is what you end up with: 4 logs, 2 slightly smaller, 2 slightly larger. Take each one and just roll it on the countertop under your hands. And if you get any air pockets, you can just kind of gently squeeze those out. You just want to make sure all those layers are nicely adhered together. Roll out that shape until it's at least twice the length of your bread pan bottom, and then cut them in half right down the middle. Now take a greased bread loaf pan and you're just going to arrange these in there, and just do it randomly. You just kind of put all the different sizes, different places. Doesn't make a whole lot of a difference which way you put these. And you'll notice that they will shrink a little after you cut them, but that's okay. You have some space on either side of the bread pan. Those will get filled up when this rises again. Now once they're all in there, I just tried to make sure the edges were even. So I kind of stretched them so that you had a flat ends. I kind of squished them together a little bit, very, very gently. Just make sure there were no air pockets in there. and that they're all nicely stuck together. Now, once I achieved something that I thought was just what I wanted, I took a piece of greased plastic wrap, put it over top. Now, you need to grease it because that bread's going to rise and touch the plastic wrap. And if it's not greased, it'll stick like a crazy and it might ruin the top of your bread loaf. Put this in a warm place to rise until doubled. And here it is, risen. As you can see, the plastic wrap comes up very nicely, and it's completely filled that bread pan, or just about. And it's also gone over higher than the bread pan. You're going to bake this at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes until it's golden brown all over, and then when you tap it, it kind of sounds hollow. I like a nice soft bread crust, so as soon as it comes out of the oven, I brush it with just a little bit of butter, but this is completely optional. Allow it to cool for about 5 or 10 minutes in the pan, then remove the loaf from the pan and put it on a wire rack to cool completely. And once your bread is cooled completely, you can slice it. So there it is, and I can hardly wait to see what it looks like inside. The best part of these bread recipes is the slicing, so you can get to see what you ended up with. And here we go. Of course, the heel of the loaf, or the end piece, is not going to be as pretty because you're not going to have all of the patches included. But as you continue to slice, those giraffe patches will begin to emerge from the loaf until you get some awesome giraffe patches bread. And of course, you can slice this as thinly or as thickly as you want. Now, this bread recipe is actually very nice. The bread's nice and light, and I find the texture of it is very, very nice, and is perfect for sandwiches or whatever you want to do with it. This has a very light cocoa flavor to it, but it's very light, and if you wanted to use it for grilled cheese or even for a regular sandwich, it's not going to really take away from the flavor of whatever you put inside because the flavor is very mild. If you don't like the idea of using cocoa, then just use some brown food coloring instead. Hey, just in case you missed it, I've also made leopard print bread. A little bit more complicated to do, but not that hard. You can see this video by clicking on your screen or looking for the link in the description box below. Thanks for watching. Any guesses to what kind of bread I might be trying next? Here is a little hint for you, and this is actually an intersection in Tokyo, Japan. Bye-bye.